Came here as fast as I could.
Oh, someone needs a brown marker.
Turns out Toy Story 5 isn't just a movie, but a warning. At first glance, it looks like another emotional story about toys and childhood, but hidden beneath every frame are details that completely change the story. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. 1. Bonnie's opening play scene looks familiar, but something feels off. Her stories aren't chaotic anymore. They feel structured, almost controlled. It's like her imagination is being guided instead of flowing freely. And that small shift tells us everything is already changing. Her creativity hasn't disappeared, but it feels filtered, as if her ideas are shaped before they fully form. That subtle shift hints at something deeper. Bonnie's play no longer feels purely internal. It's influenced by structured learning and digital media. Unlike earlier kids in the series, whose imagination felt raw and limitless, Bonnie reflects a more modern environment where creativity exists alongside systems and patterns. As a result, her connection to the toys begins to change. They're no longer the center of endless adventures. Instead, they exist within a more structured world that doesn't rely on them as much. And that creates tension, because toys depend on free, unrestricted imagination to matter. 1. Jesse and Bullseye, sitting quietly in the background, positioned on the seat behind Bonnie, don't feel like a random choice in staging. It comes across as a very intentional visual decision, one that signals more than just where they are physically in the room. Their placement suggests a growing emotional distance, as if they've been pushed out of the center of Bonnie's world without a single word being said. They're no longer involved in the action or the imagination driving the moment. Instead, they're reduced to simply watching from afar. This subtle shift is one of the earliest indicators that the toys are slowly losing their importance in Bonnie's life. What makes the scene even more impactful is the quiet emotion written into their expressions. There's a sense of longing and disappointment that isn't exaggerated, but still deeply felt if you pay attention. It's a soft, almost silent moment, yet it carries a weight that dialogue wouldn't be able to capture as effectively. 3. The moment the robot vacuum glides into the scene is far from being a simple background prop. It carries a subtle but meaningful narrative weight. Its deliberate, slow movement toward Bonnie highlights just how long she has been lying there, fully immersed in whatever has captured her focus. Around her, life goes on. The room hums with activity, objects move, and the environment continues its rhythm. But Bonnie herself is clearly disconnected from all of it. This creates a visual contrast that emphasizes the depth of her absorption, suggesting that whatever has her attention now is something the traditional toys can no longer compete with. At the same time, the presence of the vacuum quietly introduces a broader theme: the influence of automation and technology in Bonnie's world. It's a visual hint that the story is starting to explore how machines and devices are increasingly shaping human behavior, even in the most personal spaces. This seemingly minor moment sets the stage for larger narrative implications, showing how the toy's relevance is being challenged not just by growing independence, but by a world increasingly governed by technology, a theme that gains significance as the story continues to unfold. 1. The materials Bonnie uses during her playtime may look simple, but they carry subtle continuity. The exact same tissues used in making Forky could be seen in the cathedral. Handmade accessories and reused craft items show that she still values creativity, just like she did before. However, these items feel less central to her attention compared to what comes next. The balance between imagination and distraction is already shifting. Pixar uses these small props to show us that her world is slowly changing. And once you notice that shift, everything else starts to make more sense. 1. What gives this scene its quiet emotional weight is the way Jesse and Bullseye remain almost completely still across several shots. While the camera moves and time clearly passes around them, their situation remains frozen, creating a subtle but powerful sense of stagnation. This stillness conveys the feeling that they are stuck, left on the sidelines, slowly slipping into a state of neglect. Pixar doesn't often choose to keep characters motionless without purpose, so this deliberate choice carries deeper meaning. In this case, it reflects how rapidly the toy's importance in Bonnie's life can diminish from cherished companions to overlooked figures almost without warning. The longer the sequence lingers on them, the more poignant and unsettling the realization becomes, reinforcing the emotional undercurrent of change, loss, and the fragility of the bond between child and toy. 1. Even though Andy is no longer actively part of the toy's day-to-day experiences, his influence and memory continue to resonate in subtle ways. That single, simple letter A etched on Bonnie's window quietly signals his lingering presence, acting almost like a ghost of the past that shapes the present. It serves as a gentle reminder of the origins of these beloved characters and the journeys they've shared, anchoring the story in its rich history. Beyond just nostalgia, this tiny detail reinforces broader themes of legacy, change, and the passage of time, highlighting how the world of Toy Story moves forward while still honoring its roots. In just one fleeting visual, Pixar masterfully bridges the gap between generations, connecting the innocence of Andy's era with the evolving imagination of Bonnie, showing how storytelling can transcend time and ownership. 1. Bonnie's father using his phone while telling her to stop screen time is a moment of quiet irony. It reflects real-world behavior in a way that feels almost uncomfortable. Pixar is not just telling a story about toys anymore, but about habits and influence. Children often mirror what they see, and this scene highlights that perfectly. It also explains why Bonnie is drawn to screens in the first place. And just like that, the story becomes more grounded and real. 1. At first glance, the rainbow drawings displayed above Bonnie's bed might appear to be nothing more than cheerful, harmless decorations meant to brighten her room. However, upon closer inspection, their design strongly echoes the visual style of Sunnyside Daycare from Toy Story 3, a place famously associated with toys being swapped, controlled, and ultimately feeling powerless. This connection is deliberate rather than coincidental. By echoing that imagery in Bonnie's personal space, Pixar cleverly suggests that similar themes of displacement and changing dynamics could be emerging again. It serves as a subtle bridge between the past and present, creating a quiet emotional resonance that longtime fans immediately recognize. Beneath the playful colors, there's a hidden tension, a sense that history may be quietly repeating itself, adding an undercurrent of unease to what initially seems like a simple, joyful scene. 9. The frog-themed design of Lily Pad is not just a visual choice, but a layered concept. Frogs live in ponds, and everything about this device connects back to that idea. It creates a cohesive identity that feels playful on the surface, but underneath, it represents something deeper and more invasive. Unlike the classic toys we've seen throughout the Toy Story universe, wooden soldiers, stuffed animals, or wind-up figures, this particular toy feels almost alive in a completely different way. It doesn't just sit passively on a shelf or wait to be picked up, it actively engages with its environment. It listens, reacts, and adapts to the actions of those around it, as if it has its own agenda. The boundaries between toy and sentient presence blur, creating a sense of unpredictability that the traditional toys never possessed. This responsive nature gives it an influence far beyond mere play. It can subtly shape decisions, guide actions, or even manipulate emotions. What seems like an innocent interaction at first can quickly become a form of control, steering those nearby without their conscious awareness. Its presence alone introduces tension, because it's no longer a neutral object. It is an agent capable of changing the behavior of the humans and toys it encounters. 1. At first, the snippets of forum discussions about traveling to snowy destinations might appear to be just minor, unrelated background chatter. However, they actually serve a deeper purpose, subtly hinting at a much broader world that exists beyond Bonnie's immediate surroundings. This detail suggests that information, ideas, and experiences are no longer confined to a single space. They are circulating across multiple locations and reaching far beyond the room the toys inhabit. Once that boundary is crossed, the scope of the story widens dramatically, opening up new possibilities for exploration, adventure, and challenges. The toys are no longer limited to the safety and predictability of a single house or bedroom. Their world is becoming larger, more complex, and far less contained than it has ever been before. 1. The presence of octopus icons is another layered reference, this time linking to Finding Dory. Characters like Hank represent intelligence, adaptability, and survival. By including this symbol, Pixar may be hinting at similar traits becoming important in this story. It is a small visual choice with big thematic implications, and it shows how carefully every element is placed.
12. The appearance of the Ribbit Forum, subtly displayed on the tablet Lily, is a particularly smart and contemporary touch by Pixar. This element cleverly parodies real-world social platforms such as Reddit, instantly grounding the Toy Story universe in the digital age. It signals that communication, information sharing, and influence now extend far beyond direct, physical interactions, and that the toys are navigating a world far more complex than simply playing with human owners. More than just a playful nod to modern technology, this detail hints that the true challenges the toys face may not be tangible or physical at all. Instead, they might be navigating psychological, social, or systemic obstacles that test them in entirely new ways.
It signals that leadership within the toy group is no longer concentrated in the hands of a single figure. Instead, responsibility, guidance, and decision-making are now shared among multiple characters. This redistribution reflects an evolving dynamic, where authority and influence are more fluid and collaborative, highlighting both growth and the inherent uncertainty that comes with it. In the context of a story deeply rooted in change and adaptation, this subtle detail underscores how the group must navigate new roles, rely on one another in different ways, and face challenges together. It's a quiet yet powerful indication that the world these toys inhabit and the way they relate to each other is becoming increasingly complex, layered, and unpredictable. 15. When light reflects off Woody's head, it creates a subtle but noticeable change in his appearance. At first, it feels like a simple animation choice, something playful and quick. But the longer you look, the more it feels intentional, almost symbolic. This is Pixar quietly acknowledging the passage of time, not just in the story, but in real life. Woody is no longer the same toy from the beginning. And without saying a word, the film reminds us that even icons grow older. 16. Jesse holding a walkie-talkie marked with the letter W might seem like a small prop, but it carries significant narrative weight. It demonstrates her active attempt to stay in contact with Woody, bridging the physical gap between them and reinforcing the idea that their connections are more than just proximity-based. Communication among the toys has clearly evolved into a more deliberate and coordinated system, reflecting a sophistication that mirrors the challenges they now face. This subtle moment highlights how the characters are adapting to new circumstances, learning to respond strategically even in situations that remain confusing or uncertain, and it underscores the growing complexity of their world. 17. The repeated appearance of rainbow stickers throughout Bonnie's room is more than decoration. It reinforces her identity, her personality, and how she expresses herself creatively. But at the same time, it contrasts with her growing distance from traditional toys. The room is still colorful, still imaginative, yet her attention is elsewhere. This creates a quiet tension between who she is and what she is becoming, and Pixar lets that contradiction sit without forcing an explanation. 18. When the tablet begins transmitting or downloading data, the tone of the story shifts instantly. This is no longer just a toy interacting with a child. It is something that observes, records, and possibly shares information. That introduces a level of threat the toys have never faced before. They are no longer hidden in a safe, controlled environment. And once their existence risks exposure, everything changes. 19. Behind Woody, we see clouds drawn on a board, and this detail carries emotional weight. These are not random doodles, but a clear visual callback to Andy's room from the earlier films. That cloud wallpaper represented comfort, childhood, and belonging. By recreating it here, Pixar bridges the past and present in a subtle way. It suggests that even though ownership has changed, the emotional roots remain. And for longtime viewers, it hits on a deeply nostalgic level. 20. The word ladybug appearing on the tablet screen feels like a blink and you miss it moment. But Pixar rarely includes random text without purpose. It could be a subtle nod to a bug's life, connecting back to another story about overlooked characters. Ladybugs in that film were misunderstood, just like toys are becoming in this one. It creates a thematic parallel between being seen and being ignored. And that connection adds another layer to the narrative. 21. The presence of multiple kids using similar devices suggests that this is not an isolated situation. Bonnie is not the only one being influenced. This is something larger, something spreading. It turns a personal story into a wider problem affecting many children. And for the toys, that means the challenge is no longer contained. It is everywhere. 22. Peer pressure becomes one of the most subtle yet powerful forces in the story. Bonnie's shift away from her toys does not happen in isolation. It is influenced by the people around her, by what is considered normal or exciting. This reflects real-life behavior in a very honest way. Children adapt to their environment quickly, often without realizing it. And this detail makes the story feel more grounded than ever before. 23. The appearance of multiple Buzz Lightyear toys introduces a deeper concept of identity. Buzz has always struggled with understanding who he is. Now, seeing countless versions of himself raises that question again in a new way. What makes him unique if there are so many identical copies? This detail transforms a visual moment into a philosophical one, and it pushes Buzz's character into new territory. 24. The repeated presence of toy horses in the background may seem minor, but it reinforces a pattern. Just like Buzz, these toys exist in multiples, lacking individuality. This creates a visual theme of mass production versus personal connection. It reminds us that what makes the main characters special is not their design, but their experiences. And that distinction becomes more important as the story progresses. 25. New characters appearing alongside the main group signal expansion. The story is no longer limited to familiar faces. Each new toy brings a different perspective, a different role, and new possibilities. This creates fresh dynamics within the group, and it opens the door for conflicts and alliances we have not seen before. 26. When Buzz and Woody attempt to stop the tablet and fail, it marks a critical turning point. These are characters who have always found a way to win, but here, they are outmatched by something they do not understand. This moment shifts the balance of power in the story, and it introduces a new kind of vulnerability. 27. Bonnie's name written across her desk may seem like a simple personalization, but it reinforces the idea of ownership, identity, and belonging. The toys exist because they belong to someone, but what happens when that connection weakens? This detail quietly raises that question without answering it, and it lingers in the background of every scene. 28. The mousetrap in the garage introduces a sense of danger outside the safe environment of the room. It reminds us that the outside world is unpredictable and risky. For toys, even the smallest hazards can be life-threatening. This detail foreshadows challenges that may come later, and it adds tension to any scene that moves beyond familiar spaces. 29. The appearance of a modern car, possibly a Tesla, grounds the story firmly in the present day. The brief glimpse of a sleek modern car strongly resembling something like a Tesla Model 3 instantly anchors the story in a recognizable present-day reality. It's not just a passing detail, it signals how far the world has moved beyond the environment these toys were originally built for. This isn't the familiar, slower-paced setting of the past anymore. It's a world defined by rapid innovation, clean design, and silent electric motion, where even everyday objects feel smarter, faster, and more advanced. What makes this detail more meaningful is that technology is no longer just an obstacle that the toys occasionally face. It has become the fabric of the world they exist in. From smart devices to automated systems, everything around them reflects a shift toward convenience and efficiency. The toys aren't just dealing with change, they are surrounded by it at all times. This constant presence of evolving technology subtly raises the stakes, making their struggle feel less like a single conflict and more like an ongoing challenge they can't escape. At the same time, the visual contrast becomes impossible to ignore. On one side, you have these well-worn, emotionally rich toys and objects built for imagination, touch, and human connection. On the other hand, you have polished, high-tech machines designed for precision and autonomy. The difference isn't just aesthetic, it represents two completely different eras of human experience. The toys symbolize a past rooted in simplicity and emotional value, while the modern world represents speed, innovation, and detachment. 30. The final outdoor shot represents the biggest shift in the entire story. For most of its history, the world of Toy Story has been defined by intimate bedrooms filled with imagination, quiet hallways, daycare centers, and carefully contained environments where every movement felt familiar and controlled. These spaces weren't just settings, they were safe zones, places where the toys understood the rules and could navigate their lives with a sense of certainty. The stakes were emotional, but the world itself was predictable. You always knew the boundaries, and so did they. But now, that sense of containment is beginning to dissolve. The story is pushing beyond walls, beyond ceilings, and into a much larger, more open world. One that doesn't operate on the same comforting rules. Outside those familiar spaces, everything changes. Faster movement, unfamiliar environments, and situations the toys were never built for. It's no longer about staying hidden or getting back before a human returns. Now, it's about survival in a world that keeps shifting around them. This shift changes everything, visually and emotionally. Inside a room, the toys relied on routine and teamwork. Out in the open, those rules no longer apply. The unknown becomes a real threat, and every step carries risk. For the first time, it feels like anything could happen. And that signals something bigger. The story isn't just continuing, it's evolving. By leaving its familiar setting, the franchise is stepping into new territory, challenging its own formula. When you connect all 30 of these details, this isn't just a story about toys being forgotten. It's about a world evolving beyond them, a world they might not survive in. Now I need you to think about this. Is the real villain the tablet? Or is it the world that created it? And here's the question no one is asking. If toys only matter through imagination, what happens when imagination itself changes? Drop your thoughts below. Which details shocked you the most? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.